Russia's foreign minister has urged the U.S. to deliver on its commitment to separate opposition groups that are included in the Syria ceasefire agreement from al-Nusra Front and terrorist groups. Sergei Lavrov made the call in a phone conversation with his U.S. counterpart John Kerry. He also stressed the need to publish the details of the ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry has said it's ready to extend the Syria truce by 72 hours. It said the Syrian government forces have returned to the Castello Road near the city of Aleppo after coming under fire from the militants. Moscow says the Syrian army is the only force currently abiding by the ceasefire agreement. It also said the militants have violated the ceasefire 39 times in the last 24 hours. Reports say armed groups have shelled two eastern neighborhoods of the Syrian capital, Damascus. The shelling has left a number of people injured. Peace activist and former U.S. Marine Ken O'Keefe joins us from Dominica. Sir, welcome to the program. Talk to us about Russia's recent request from the U.S. asking them to separate the opposition groups from the terrorists and the Nusra Front and Daesh.
Well, it's hard to understand why Russia or any other government would even begin to trust the United States as an honest broker in truly fighting terrorism. The war on terror itself is based on a false pretext that 19 Muslim hijackers are responsible for the events of 9/11. We know this is patently false. The evidence clearly shows that Israeli Mossad was directly involved in the bringing down of the Twin Towers and presumably Building 7. We know that Israeli fingerprints are all over it. We know that traitors in the U.S. government were involved in a plan to carry out an agenda of global spectrum dominance, full spectrum dominance. And all of this has been hand in hand with the pawns in the game of al-Qaeda, today al-Nusra Front, ISIS. These are nothing but stooges who are paid for mercenaries and are paid for by our proxies, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others. And all of these proxy elements, mercenary forces, ISIS, al-Qaeda, whatever they want to call them, are the justification to continue carrying on the farcical war on terror, which itself is based on a lie. So the idea that the United States government or its partners in the West actually want to fight terrorism is beyond ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, and nobody who's clearly observing what is happening in our world would be able to see it that way. The truth of the matter is that the policies in the Middle East are a direct result of an agenda which has nothing to do with fighting terrorism. To the contrary, it's all about sowing the seeds of sectarian hatred and fostering terrorism. I continue to refer to Oded Yinon's strategy for Israel in the 1980s. If you have not read that document, you need to read the document, because the policy of the Middle East right now is perfectly in line with Oded Yinon's strategy for Israel in the 1980s. And the bigger, broader plan is to break up the surrounding nations by sowing the seeds of sectarian hatred, i.e. using your money to feed these psychopaths who are running around Syria, Libya, and in the region in general, in Iraq, obviously, and ultimately to fracture and weaken the surrounding countries, to get the Arabs to, quote, bleed each other. And in this weakened, fractured state, Israel will then eventually be able to use any type of provocation, a false flag, to justify expanding into the surrounding countries, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt. This is the plan, and it's being played out to a T. And the fact that Israel has never once been attacked by al-Qaeda, al-Nusra Front, or ISIS, and the fact that Israel has provided medical support to al-Nusra Front in the Golan Heights, with Bibi Netanyahu himself being pictured with these militants, tells you everything about the relationship between the United States and its best friend Israel and the so-called terrorists in the Middle East. These are our paid mercenaries through our proxies, so the idea that the U.S. is fighting this is absurd on its face.
Thank you very much, sir. Peace activist and former U.S. Marine Ken O'Keefe joining us here on Press TV's Top 5.